Assalamu alaikum. This is Shadab Hussain from Wiraasat-e-Hind. Today we have a special guest that we're going to have a conversation with. Lieutenant General Zameer Uddin Shah is one of India's most distinguished soldier leaders whose service spans both national defense and nation building through education. Commissioned into the Regiment of Artillery, he served the Indian Army for roughly 4 decades, from 1968 to 2008, including the 1971 war, and went on to hold major command and leadership appointments. He led the command to bring peace after the Gujarat massacre when army was deployed. He fought the insurgency in Northeast. He is a recipient of Param Vishisht Seva Medal, and Sena Medal. He later served at the highest levels as Deputy Chief of Army Staff, Personnel and System from October 2006 to August 2008, helping shape the Army's human resource and systems leadership at a strategic level. After an illustrious military career, he took on a uniquely challenging civilian responsibility as the 20th Vice-Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University, serving from May 2012 to May 2017, where he became known for emphasizing academics, discipline, and institutional reform, massively improving the university's ranking in the world. He comes from an illustrious family and is elder brother to actor Nasiruddin Shah Sahab. He has been fighting his battles. He has been fighting against injustices, including the bulldozer led injustices in UP. General Shah is a national hero and an inspiration for Indian Muslims. Today, we are honored to hear his journey of leadership, service, and his message for India's youth. Assalamu alaikum, General
Ji,
Shah.
Shadab Sab, thank you for the introduction. It's more than I merit, but all the same, thank you very much.
Thank you. Jazakallah for your time. With that, I want to get started. And I want to get started, first of all, with the beginning. So, General Shah, please tell us about your family lineage, early life, and journey so far.
Well, we are of an Afghan ancestry. Migrated to India in 1843 after the first Afghan war. My great great grandfather migrated, and we got an estate at a place called Sardana. This is near Meerut. Subsequently, members of the family served in the British Army. My grandfather fought in the trenches in France for 4 years with the 37 Lancers Baluch and retired as an honorary lieutenant. Uncles of mine fought the Second World War in the Punjab Regiment in Burma. And my own father was in the Battle of Kohima, the Battle of Imphal, where he was a civilian with the 14th Army. And he was deputed to record the migrants, the refugees flooding in from Burma, Myanmar now, into India. So he saw the Battle of the Admin Box, and subsequently, I had no doubts what I would do. And I was quite young. I think when I was 13 or 14, I had made up my mind that I would join the National Defense Academy, and I was very lucky, alhamdulillah, and continued. So our family really settled down. They were zamindars, uh, but of course, zamindari was abolished, and rightly so. I think it was a system which uh, we abolished at the right time. But because of the fact that family members had been educated, a whole lot of them, including my father at Aligarh Muslim University, the women in the family, the men in the family, all of them rose to reasonably high positions because of what they imbibed at Aligarh Muslim University. And that is subsequently I'll discuss as to why I did go to Aligarh Muslim University despite never having studied there.
Mashallah, what a journey, actually. So, although you were born after partition, General Shah, and actually on a very special date, I'll let you talk about that date, your family endured trauma and eventually opted to stay in India. You have said it took 3 generations to forget the horrors. How did it shape you as a young boy, and what inspired you to join the Indian Army you just talked about?
Well, I was born on 15th August 1948. That's a very auspicious date. And besides the celebration of my birthday, we celebrate India's Independence Day. So As I told you that I had no doubts as to what I would join. Yes, you asked this question about my family staying on in India. My grandfather and were congressmen, and they believe that we have to stick to our roots, stay in India, and despite all the allurements of going to Pakistan, the family decided that we will hold the fort here. If we didn't, I mean, then where would the leadership go? So we held on, and I don't think we were wrong. We held on to whatever we had, and I think time will prove that we made the right decision.
You come from a very illustrious family, including those who don't know. Nasruddin Shah Saab is actually your younger brother. How was it actually growing in such illustrious family where you have, like, as you say, right? I mean, heroes after another. How was that actually growing up?
Well, I attribute that to the sacrifices my parents made. My father and my mother were God fearing. They were uh, conservative, but my father had spent 4 or 5 years in England and 2 years before that in Afghanistan. So he had seen the world. My mother got only Haveli education. That means she was versed in Arabic, Persian, and Urdu. She didn't know English and she didn't know Hindi. It was Haveli education, which my grandfather decided. And so, what my parents did, they spent all their earnings in educating us. My father was constantly being transferred from one job to another. His uh, one posting before his last was at Nainital, where he put us into St. Joseph's College, Nainital, and then he was posted to Ajmer, the first administrator of the Dargah of Hazrat Khwaja Sahib. So he kept us in the boarding, and Alhamdulillah, we achieved success because of two reasons. We were well educated, we worked hard, and we had parental blessings. These are three prerequisites, I think, for success: parental blessings, working hard, and good education. So another thing I must tell you is that in Ajmer, where my father was posted for 12 years, of course, he retired from there. They didn't let him go because he had taken the whole administration of the Dargah under control. It had been badly mismanaged, and we imbibed the Sufi traditions. Uh, my family, of course, was from the Sufi order, but in Ajmer, we got closer to Sufism, which is really, there's no difference. It is the softer face of Islam. So that's where the journey began. My parents did not insist on us to choose any particular occupation. My elder brother, he was a year senior to me. He qualified, went to IIT Kharagpur. He became an engineer, but then he switched over to management. He was the earliest management trainee with the course of Sarabhai Chemicals. So he gave up engineering despite being a graduate of IIT and went into management. I had no doubts about what I would do. And Nasir was a pretty bad student because he had other interests. So he ran away from home, and we discovered him later. And but still, despite the foundation which we had of good education, Alhamdulillah, God has been very kind. All three brothers have been successful. I thank the Lord for that.
So well said. Mashallah, in your long 40-year career in the Indian Army, which posting or operation challenged you the most, and what did it teach you about courage and decision making?
Well, I had a large number of stints. I fought the 1971 war at Longewala. I had constantly been in insurgency areas in the northeast, where I fought insurgents in Nagaland, Manipur, Tripura, all these northeastern states. But the most challenging assignment given to me is when my division was selected to fly into Ahmedabad and quell the riots which had taken place in 2002. That was a very, very challenging tenure. But I must say that I'm very, very proud of the fact that because of the fact that the army came there, we extinguished the flames of hatred and we restored law and order within 48 hours by firm, committed, and absolute. I mean, we did not take sides. We were neutral, and that's how we achieved success. That was a very, very trying period of quelling riots. It's a thankless job. No matter what you do, you will be accused of either excessive force or no force at all. But to the, I would say to my troops under my command, I landed up with 3,000 troops with 59 aircraft brought us in, and we quelled the riots. We were neutral. We didn't take sides, and we were very, very successful. That was very, very trying period for me because I had to remain totally neutral, true to my salt, and do the job which was entrusted to me. In fact, at the rear jacket of my book, you will find what the Chief of Army Staff, General Padmanabham, wrote about the forces under my command which quelled the riots.
While Muslims used to serve in the military before independence overwhelmingly, and I've read in some of the statistics that before partition, the Muslims used to be at almost 36% the overall army, even though the overall population was just about 25%. So they were overwhelmingly in the armies and military services, more than their share of the erstwhile population. But modern representation in India is estimated just as a few percent only. Why do you think there's such a decline, and how can this be improved?
Well, see, the what happened was that the Muslim majority units migrated to Pakistan en masse. What remained was units which had sprinkling of Muslims. For example, the Rajput regiment, the Maratha regiment. These had sprinkling of Muslims, and the percentage obviously dropped. After partition, the Muslims were inhibited. They felt that if they joined the armed forces, they would be discriminated against, which is a fallacy. I have served with Muslim troops also. In fact, I had two companies of Muslims which were committed in the Gujarat riots, and they get a fair deal. They are treated with a lot of respect. The problem is the fear amongst the Muslim population that they would not be treated in an impartial way. In fact, when I got my call for the National Defense Academy, it was a telegram which came in the evening, and I was with the Maulvi. I was studying Urdu when I told him, Maulvi Sahab, I'll be leaving in 2 or 3 days. So he told me, Mat jana, tassub hoga. So I said, Acha. So I told my father, कि मौलवी साहब तो ये कह रहे थे. He said, don't worry about these people. You will get a fair deal, and I'm very, very certain. Just do well. And I think he was absolutely right. So Muslims have to give up the impression that they will not get a fair deal. No, I would say that the armed forces are necessary. This is our country. We need to join the armed forces. It is our duty to ensure the security of our country, and that we can only do by joining the armed forces, joining the police, joining the administrative service. My co-brother-in-law also is a retired colonel. My son-in-law is a retired commodore in the Navy. That's equal to a brigadier. And I've got a nephew who's in the Air Force. So we compare notes, and always we've had a fair deal. In fact, in my case, it was just the opposite. I always got affirmative action to do well, and got appointments which I thought I would never get, but I did. So we Muslims of India need to have a relook. We need to work hard. We need to qualify. It's pretty hard to qualify and make it for the NDA. I tried to do it in Aligarh Muslim University, but we failed miserably, and I'll come to that later, because our youth are not prepared to endure the hardships which a career in the armed forces entails. You are given a very, very tough deal, physically, mentally, and morally. You have to be prepared. I advise the youth that there can be no better profession than the armed forces. Join up. This is the way we can. And yes, by joining the armed forces, you are ensuring your security. You are ensuring the security of your entire family, because then no policeman will come and meddle around with an army man's family. So this is an advice I'd like to give to the youth of Muslim youth of India. Join the armed forces and see what happens. You will enjoy. You will have a wonderful life, full of adventure, full of learning. The army will educate you. I joined only after senior Cambridge. That's class 11. But then the army educated me into graduation, post graduation, MPhil. I did it all with the help of the army. So this is the career. If you want something good, then honor and glory is in the armed forces.
I totally agree, and these are gems of wisdom, General Shah Saab. Because particularly I've seen that generally the minorities and particularly Muslims trust two institutions really well. Like, these are considered the last refuge of justice and peace, basically Supreme Court and the Indian Army, and they have always come through whenever required. You talked about your Gujarat experience there as well, and they have always upheld the values no matter what happens in the other institutions. So I really do believe that what you say is something that is really of immense value for people to actually join the Indian Army a lot. These are fears that don't need to be. You talked about the secular ethos of the army. It allows soldiers from diverse backgrounds to act decisively during crises. Um, in the current times, however, which are basically very highly polarizing landscape, are these ethos resilient enough to stay insulated and intact?
It is my fervent hope that the army has not lost its secular ethos. Whenever I visit units, and I still do, I have affiliations with my regiment. In fact, I was the colonel commandant of regiment. I find no change in the ethos. But what disturbs me is that a lot of retired officers have somehow become totally polarized. This is because of the effect of the media. This is because of the propaganda being forced by the media, the TV channels, and others, that there has been a degree of polarization. But despite all that, there are still a very, very large number of retired officers who stick to the old ethos that no religion while you are in the army. Uh, it is your it doesn't mean that you're not religious. No, everybody has strong belief in religion. It gives strength to everybody, but they are not biased against any religion. I'll tell you that in 1971, during the Battle of Longewala, I was in a unit where there were totally 100% Rajput troops, and there were 16 of us officers. If the composition, I'll tell you, it's the face of mini India. Out of 16 officers, there were two Sikhs, two Muslims, one Christian, one Jew, and 10 Hindus.
Mhm.
So that was mini India. We fought shoulder to shoulder. Nobody asked me what religion I was. We all put our shoulders to the wheel. And that is how the Indian Army always functioned. Religion was a personal matter in the armed forces, and I hope it remains that way.
It sounds such a wonderful place because generally there's the fear among Muslim that whether it's a cricket or military, they will always be questioned in terms of the loyalty. But here you are, you're talking about such a mix, operating actually in the 1971 war, and you don't feel any discrimination. So based on this basically what you're saying is your identity and values influence your journey, but you did not face moment where you felt you had to prove yourself more than others. Were
Never,
there ever any contradiction between practicing your faith and your military career?
never. See, my family tradition is we are teetotalers. I remained a teetotaler. Nobody ever forced me to imbibe liquor. But let me also tell you that it's a fallacy that army officers are hard drinkers. It may have been in the old days, not now. Majority of the young officers are teetotalers. Yes,
Mm.
I did adhere to the fact of my diet, and for the 40 years that I served, both my wife and I myself remained vegetarians because we wanted to avoid the host the embarrassment of asking, "Is it kosher, the meat?"
Mm.
We're vegetarians, and I think nobody really bothered. They said yes. The general and his wife are vegetarians. They're teetotalers. So it didn't. My religion and my duty to my country are not separate. They they merge together. In fact, and that's how I looked at life.
That is such a beautiful example of how you were able to actually balance both. You're practicing your faith and the military career. This is, as you say, just a fallacy that you cannot practice your faith.
No,
You
no,
you
no. It
fully
is.
example.
Suppose somebody wants to imbibe liquor, then he can always give the excuse that I was forced into. No, no, nobody forces you. It is entirely your will. And if you don't want to imbibe liquor, nobody will force you. And mind you, I still think it's not the worst of sins. There are very, very worse sins, but my father always told me that keep the family tradition in mind, and I yeah, adhere to his advice.
Marshal, after such a prestigious army career, what motivated you to take on the role of Vice Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University?
Let me tell you a little about how the Vice Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University is selected. He is not, I repeat, not appointed by the government. The Vice Chancellor of Aligarh Muslim University is elected by 200 members of the Aligarh Muslim University Court. So after I retired, I was a judge in the Armed Forces Tribunal, where I had the tenure of 4 years. That's equivalent to a High Court judge. And one fine day, a delegation from Aligarh Muslim University came to me and said, General, please come and we want you as the Vice Chancellor because there's a lot of indiscipline. Things need to be mended. And because of my attachment to Aligarh Muslim University, whole generations of my family had studied there, I decided to take on the challenge, much against the wishes of my family and my brother, who had studied in AMU. He told me, this is a cross you will bear. It's a very, very thankless job. And I still feel, yes, it is thankless, but then I've never shied away from taking on responsibility. And only one condition I had is that I'm not going to go and give speeches before my selection. If you want me elected, you speak to the members of the court. If they elect me, fine. I already have a job. I'm not looking for a job. And to my pleasant surprise, I think they thought that I would do well for the university, and they elected me. So I resigned from the Armed Forces Tribunal, much against the wishes of the Chief Justice, who told me, don't go. Universities treat military men very badly, but I had made up my mind. It was, if I can sum it up, it was a calling, which I answered. I did not shirk from it, and I'm glad that I did.
That brings to another question, General Shah. When you became the VC of AMU, what were the biggest challenges you encountered in the institution, and how did you approach any reform and modernization? Particularly, the bridge courses that you started to help madrasa graduates transition into mainstream university programs.
The biggest challenge which I faced was indiscipline, both of students and teachers. That's number one. Secondly, the university was in bad shape. I went to the Jama Masjid and I found trees from the minarets, trees sprouting from the minarets and from the Gumbat and everything else. And I asked the Imam, why don't you get rid of these? Because they'll wreck the structure. He said, Sab chad nahi sakte. So I climbed up and I showed him how to do it.
Hmm.
So we restored all the old historical buildings. That was number one. We settled the roads and we got the students' union under control. They thought there had been the vice chancellors who had fallen prey to pressure from the students' union. I said nothing of the sort. And when one of the students' union leaders, the president, tried to mess around with me, we caught him on some financial impropriety, and I had to expel him. And he thought there would be a revolution in the university, but there wasn't a whimper. And then the teachers, teachers felt that they could, a large number, that there were some very, very good teachers, but some felt that all they needed to do is enter politics, keep the vice chancellor busy, and not attend to there are 12 periods mandated for a professor. They were not doing it. They were hardly taking 3 or 4. So I went into all the rosters, made sure that the professors did fulfill their responsibilities. But what I concentrated on is research. I realized that research should not be pointless. There has to be an aim. And I wondered what we should research on what the country needs. So the first requirement was improve agricultural product, food. Secondly, the water, clean the rivers. Our rivers had become very dirty. They were a mess. They were the lifeline of the country. And third was um, uh, power. We were deficient. We lack oil and other things. We just have a few oil fields in Northeast India. So we found that the way forward was to do research in agriculture, in purification of dirty water, and in solar energy. And we did all that. There was remarkable research done, and a university standing depends a large number, to a large extent, on the quality of research. Another thing which I'm very, very proud of is the fact that Aligarh Muslim University had large periods of closure of the university, Sandai strikes, and everything else. I say with pride that I served there for exactly 5 years. Not a single day was the university ever closed. There were strikes, there were everything else, there were student problems, but the university kept functioning. Examinations were held on time, the convocations were held every year, and we carried on with the work. And that is how, in my final year, that means the academic year 2016-17, when international ranking agencies surreptitiously, they don't tell you that they're coming. They came, they assessed the university, and Times Higher Education London and US News and World Report graded AMU as the #1 university of the country.
Mm.
I'm proud of
Wow.
the fact this happened because of the discipline we imposed. This happened because of the quality of research. And this happened because we had sorted out it was the cleanest and the greenest university of the country. I request you to visit, and you'll believe what I say. We are the cleanest and greenest university. We are a modern secular university. People don't believe it. They think we are a glorified madrasa. No, we are a modern secular university, and we are the best in the country.
What a transition. Mashallah, this transformation is amazing. And I've seen those rankings rise up, no wonder. Um, Among all the efforts to suppress the minority character of the education institutions, what role do you think AMU and similar institutions play in shaping confident and capable Indian Muslims in the modern era?
See, AMU has played a sterling role in the education of not only Muslims, but majority, who are the majority, but of all castes, creeds, religions. AMU is a university which is secular. The admissions are by open competitive examinations. Yes, the internal students, it is one of the only university which has 10, which is running 10 schools, including one school for the underprivileged who children who have lost their vision.
Mm.
So these are the feeder institutions, and because of that, a large, I would say about 70% of the students are from the Muslim community. If I would say, if Aligarh Muslim University had not educated the youth of the Muslim youth, there would have been no leaders, there would have been no scientists. The bulk of our leaders, scientists, and everybody else, and now, of course, there are a lot of other universities, but at that point of time, when there were few universities, Aligarh Muslim University was the torch for for modern secular scientific education. And I think it is essential that it remains a minority institution. The minority character had been placed in danger by a ruling of the Allahabad High Court. It's a case called Aziz Basha, where the university was not concerned. It was Aziz Basha who was challenging something else. And the learned judges decided that it was a golden opportunity to interfere in the minority character of the university. So that was endangered. However, the recent Supreme Court ruling has set aside the Aziz Basha case, and I maintain that we are a minority institution. The final character of the university will be decided, of course, later. The Supreme Court did not give a definite ruling, but the case, the Aziz Basha case, which endangered the minority character of the university, has been set aside by the Honorable Supreme Court.
Hmm. One of the reform you undertook was the bridge courses to help madrasa graduates transition into mainstream university programs. I found that very interesting, and I would say very much needed because there's a large population of students who come from madrasa. They would have no other option. These madrasas provide them the opportunity to get some literacy and education. How was that received, and how did you come up with that idea?
Well, see, I started my education in a madrasa, the family madrasa, which my grandfather used to run. Of course, I studied there for a short while, but I got to know who was my takhti. I studied things, and I realized that these institutions have unnecessarily been demonized by the press and by the media and everything else. They are institutions where poor Muslim children go to study. If they had not gone to the madrasa, they would have been totally illiterate. But what was required was that in after 1857, the madrasas, which means the school, concentrated only on dini talim, that means only religious teaching, to save the Muslim population from the onslaught of the British. That should have changed after independence. The madrasas should have got modernized and become normal schools. Yes, uh, Quranic teaching is very much necessary, which the madrasas are giving, but they have to impart modern scientific knowledge too. And I studied what happened in Japan in 1873 when the first steamship sailed into Japan. The Japanese were aghast. Okay, what is this? We've been left behind. We've got to do something about it. So what they did is they selected 200 monks from all over Japan, sent them for PhDs to USA, France, and Britain. And these monks came back with modern scientific knowledge. Another thing that the Japanese did around that period, they devoted almost 50% of their GDP to education. 50%.
Hmm.
Now 3 or 4%. Imagine GDP of 50% going in for education. So what happened was there was universal education in Japan. These 200 monks came, modernized the monasteries. So we need to have a movement where our madrasas become modernized. And when we tried, I said the best approach is bottom up. Let's start with the students first. So we started a course called the Bridge Course for Hafiz al-Quran. This is a 1-year dose of English, information technology, and social studies. These people were given a dose, 75 boys, 25 girls. Now it is 60 boys and 40 girls. And I tell you, the transformation of these students, Hafiz al-Quran, they have got immense power of imbibing knowledge, was terrific. And a large number, I would say 99% of them, have secured admissions into open universities through open competitive examination. So this bridge course was essential to to uh, to get the students to imbibe modern knowledge. So far, I think for the last 12 years, I think 1,200 students have gone through this bridge course. These students are the agents of change. They're going back to their madrasa and saying, look, it's not necessary for you to wear kurta pajama for the rest of your life. You can imbibe knowledge. You can aim for things higher than being an imam or muezzin of a mosque. They have become lawyers. Some have got admission in English honors. Can you believe it? So
Hmm.
the change in the madrasas has to be bottom up. And the bridge course, we named it the bridge course. It's a bridge between Quranic knowledge and modern secular education, scientific education. That's why we called it the bridge course. I think, Alhamdulillah, it has been exceedingly successful. And the I have been visiting madrasas. I see these agents of change have had an impact. Madrasas are realizing that yes, we need to modernize the curriculum. We need to teach mathematics, information, technology, science. So I think the madrasas are on the mend, and they will become, I would say, like a Christian, well, institutions where the priests, where they're educated, they are given education in Christianity, but also given modern education. I was educated by Christian brothers, Irish, and they were very well educated. And so I think we need to follow the same example. We need to learn from what the Japanese imbibed from the Meiji Restoration. It's called the Meiji Restoration, the 200 monks coming back after getting their PhDs. So this is an experiment we've undertaken, and I am certain that it will be very successful.
Amazing, amazing story, actually, and so much needed. Tell us about your book, General Shah, which you wrote, which is Sarkari Musalman. What messages would you give to Indian Muslim youth who feel uncertain about their future or feel disconnected from mainstream success?
You know, when I wrote the book, it's about my life. But why I named it the Sarkari Musalman, it is the pejorative given to the Muslim community by their own people when they when they stick to the rules. So if you stick to the rules and cannot give favors to your own community, now it's all fair play. But you cannot go against the rules. So the community calls you a Sarkari Musalman. I say it's a pejorative. Where I first heard this was when I was a young lieutenant, and we stayed in Missouri. In a hotel, I met 10 of these very uh, bright young boys. They told me they're from the Aligarh Muslim University riding team. Oh, I said, you have the right material to enter the armed forces. I gave them the plus points. I, cleared their misgivings and their wrong impressions. I spent about half an hour with them. At the end of the meeting, I said, how many of you, 10 of you, will join the National Defense Academy? We need horsemen. Not a single student raised his hand. So I said, weren't you convinced by what I told you? So one of their leaders, he said, nahi sahab, aap to sarkari Musliman hai. You
Mm.
are speaking with a Muslim agenda. You are with a government agenda. So that stuck to my mind. And I was, my father, when he was in Ajmer, when he tried to get hold of the finances and everything, Shah Sahab to Sarkari Musalman hai, he is pushing the government agenda. And myself, when I was in AMU, of course, I am sympathetic to my community, but I always tell them we cannot violate the rules. We have to go by the rules. So when my publisher, when I published the book, he says, General, I want to give you some advice. He says, very few people buy books but don't read them. About 10% only read. They use the books as an ornament. So he says, your book must have a catchy title and must have a good cover. So I did exactly that. I felt the Sarkari Musalman was a pretty catchy title, and it was. And of course, it had a nice cover with a flag hoisting of the national flag during Independence Day. So that is how I named it the Sarkari Musalman.
That's clever, actually, and that's really reflect, sometimes the mindset that we have to fight against. Recently, General Shah, you petitioned the Supreme Court against bulldozer justice and extrajudicial demolitions. What prompted you to take this step, and what reforms do you believe are necessary to ensure due process and protect innocent families from collective punishment?
I am a believer that there has to be no uh, collective punishment. I did find that the bulk of demolitions were directed against Muslim homes. I felt that was injustice of the highest order. And so I did petition. I mean, without notice, people were coming and demolishing homes, not giving notice to the family. And the Supreme Court did hear. And tried to put a stop on it. These demolitions are still continuing, but they have decreased to a large extent. To whom much is given, much is expected. And I think that all I did was safeguarding the interests of a community which is a vital part of India, and they should not be discriminated against.
It is such a travesty of justice, to be honest, and thank you for taking that action and petitioning the Supreme Court. You have also participated in several dialogues with RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat as recently as last month. What has been the most encouraging outcome of these meetings, and what concrete steps would you like the RSS and other organizations to take to curb hate speech and foster trust among communities?
See, we felt that dialogue would be the best answer for a minority to resolve their problems. And the people who were dead set earlier against Muslims was the RSS. I read their literature and what they imbibed right from childhood, and we thought that the best bet would be, so we requested for a meeting with the chief of the RSS, Bhagwatji, and we visited his headquarters. And what struck me was the Spartan conditions under which he lived. And at the appointed to the second, the timing was 10 o'clock. He came, he heard us out, and we told him the problems of the Muslims. We asked him, "What are your problems?" He gave a few problems. He says, "You call us kafir, you all resort to cow slaughter." And what he said, "You are all Hindus." So I said, I pointed out, I said, Bhagwat ji, Hindu आप कह रहे हैं, that is related to a religion. A Hindu means you are related to a particular faith. We are not Hindus. We are Hindustani Muslims. You can call us Bharti Muslims. You can call us Hindi, as I was called when I served in the Gulf in Saudi Arabia for 3.5 years. But certainly it would be improper. So I said, जो आप चाहें, अगर आप सोचते हैं कि भारतीय मुसलमान हैं तो बहुत ठीक है. So there is a great degree of understanding, but I'm afraid to say that there has been very little difference on the ground. The
Mm,
atrocities continue. We have got to, I've been telling the community that do not do anything which irritates the majority community. We have to, we have been painted as villains by the cinema, by the social media. Let us change that opinion by winning honors for the country. I said, let us raise sportsmen who can go and win 3 or 4 gold medals for the country. Let us serve the country. Let us do our best for the country. And to businessmen who felt threatened by this, by calls for boycotting their business, I advise them, don't worry about it. Just be honest. Have a small margin of profit, but don't try and cheat. Be honest. And I said, no matter what anybody says, people will come to you. So that is how we have been giving stress to education. I think that the way forward is understanding the problems of each other, conversing with each other, and carrying out the dialogue. We cannot. What other, when people accuse us of conversing with the RSS for our own careers, they says, you people want to be governors, you want to be this, that, rubbish. We have achieved whatever the good Lord had to give us. Our sole aim was to reduce the tensions, to improve the the intermixing of people. We wanted to make sure that the Muslims participate in the progress of the country through education, and we are working towards that. Our dialogue will continue. We are not afraid. We are castigated by our own community. We are castigated by a lot of right wing people, but we don't bother. We will carry on. Our mission is progress of the country, unity in diversity. We firmly believe that, and that is achieved by working together, by improving the understanding, and by winning honors for the country.
totally. I couldn't believe more. You know, I couldn't agree more on this, General Shah, because this is also our tradition. Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he sent emissaries, he wrote letters, he talked with all the opponents, right? He continued the conversation and the dialogue. So it is that in spirit that we need to continue dialogue. That's the only way to solve the problem. Now, let's come to a round of Wiraasat-e-Hind themed rapid fire questions to answer in just very few words. And let me start with, what is your favorite dish?
Oh, well, my favorite dish is khade masale ka gosh. My wife, I think, makes it without comparison. She's a great cook, and some people call it, but I think we call it khade masale ka gosh. It is just about the dish which I relish the most.
What is that other name that you were mentioning of the same dish?
There's some other name, I don't know, but khade masale ka gosh is
Garam
wonderful.
masala. Okay. What is favorite dessert?
Oh, dessert is, I think, is zarda.
Zarda.
I
Favorite.
now, mind you, I have a strange combination. I eat zarda with korma. That
Oh,
means
okay.
salty, sweetish. Try it. Try
Inshallah.
try zarda with a little dash of korma. So it gives a sweet taste, but it gives a little If you add a little salt, korma, is just wonderful.
I know, and that's why people actually try. And I used to love this, the combination of zarda and pulao, right? That actually tastes wonderful.
Try zarda and korma.
Inshallah. What is your favorite monument?
My favorite one is the monument of the world, the Taj. I think every time I go to it, I visited it several times. The beauty haunts me. It
Yeah,
is just haunting beauty, and I think I have traveled all over the world. There's nothing comparable to the Taj.
so true. Just it's hard to actually encompass its beauty in your eyes itself. What is your favorite art or handicraft?
Well, my favorite art is what my brother practices. That is drama. I
Yeah.
think he's the best in his profession.
So
And
true.
that is something, of course, I like people who sing. I'm fond of music, but I think my favorite is good drama.
So true. And yeah, Nasir Saab is unmatched.
Yeah, he's unmatched.
Yeah,
I'm a real ardent fan.
true. Favorite custom or tradition, any tehzeeb or riwaz that you want to continue?
Well, I think what we need to do is uh, follow the traditions of your family, both in matters of dress, in speech. What I want to preserve is the Urdu language. Unfortunately, what has happened is that students these days have to study English and Hindi. And I've been advising in all gatherings that the responsibility to teach and learn Urdu rests with the families. We've got to preserve this beautiful language. I mean, there's so much beauty in it. I was a student of in a boarding school where it was the thrust was English poets, and but then when I read Urdu poetry and other things, I think it is incomparable. I mean, the English poetry is nothing compared to what Urdu and Farsi poetry gave us, and that is something which you got to preserve.
True. Even though you don't understand the meaning, the narration of the Persian and Urdu poetry is just unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Totally. Favorite Hindustani Muslim personality, whether historic or modern?
Well, I think it's difficult to say. There are so many. But Tipu Sultan is one of my favorites. In fact, when I was the Vice Chancellor, when we made the Department of Defense Studies, I made that building the Tipu Sultan building because I think he was a great patriot. He fought for the honor of the country. So he's my all time favorite. He was a soldier, he was a leader, and he had the interests of the country in mind.
So true. Favorite poet or author?
Oh, okay. My favorite poet is a non-Muslim poet. He is Bihari Noor. I don't know if you read his because his poetry is so relevant to the conditions which we have today.
Hmm.
Bihari Noor, I'm forgetting his first name, but he wrote poetry which caught my imagination. And it was, of course, I felt it was wrongly headed. The title, it says कि जिंदगी सबसे बड़ी सजा तो है जिंदगी something like that. जिंदगी सबसे बड़ी सजा ही है. I felt कि no, zindagi is not सबसे बड़ी सजा, but the relevant lines which I will use, two very very relevant lines which are very very important in today's context. He says, झूठ, sorry, सच घटे या बढ़े तो सच ना रहे. झूठ की कोई इंतहा ही नहीं.
Hmm.
Is so relevant in today's world.
These are deep lines.
I'll repeat it again. झूठ घटे या बढ़े तो झूठ सॉरी सच घटे या बढ़े तो सच ना रहे. झूठ की कोई इंतहा ही नहीं. That
Hmm.
means lying and people will believe you. This is very relevant today in
True.
today's context. The social media is spelling out propaganda and lies. We've got to another thing which he said, and this is against about hypocrisy in the same. He says, आईने को अगर शीशे के फ्रेम में भी जड़ दो, आईना झूठ बोलेगा ही नहीं.
Mm.
You know, you
Very
see
deep. Yeah.
the line. And mind you, he's a non-Urdu writer. He writes in Devanagari
Mm.
script, Urdu. So he's become a little favorite of mine because of the relevance of his poetry in today's time. I mean, we've a lot of romance and love and everything else and other thing else. But what I like poetry which is relevant
Mm.
today's.
To favorite book you would recommend everyone to read?
Favorite book is written by a military author, Defeat into Victory.
Defeat into Victory. Okay.
Victory
Wow.
by Field Marshal Slim.
Mm.
Field Marshal Slim was a commander in the Second World War who was defeated in Burma by the Japanese. He withdrew back to India, re-raised his army, and went back and reconquered
Mm.
from the Japanese. So this is a book. It's a military history book, but I recommend all people who are watching to read "Defeat into Victory" by Field Marshal Slim. It is a wonderful book. It has a lot of lessons, and one of the most striking things about his advice is given: nothing is as good or as bad as initially reported. Whenever there's a mishap, you'll hear a lot of signs, you'll hear a lot of news. If something good, we did that. But when you go onto the ground, you find that it was not as good or as bad as
Well,
the reports given to you. It is a book which is just wonderful. And what I learned, he's quoted he says, uh, if anything can go wrong, it will. So you have to cater for eventualities where your planning will go haywire. So anything can go wrong, it will. And then I've added on at the worst possible moment.
yeah, that's true.
It
Murphy's Law.
will go wrong at the worst possible moment. But my author, I am fond of Captain Littleheart.
Mm.
Why I'm saying this is because being a military man, I learned that the best way not to repeat the mistakes of earlier generals is to study military history. And Captain Littleheart was wounded in the First World War, but he's reputed to be the captain who taught generals. He left service as a captain, so he's Captain Littleheart. But the knowledge which he gave to future leaders, future commanders, and to, I think, the rest of the population. Captain Littleheart, he is an amazing writer of military history. So I am a student of military history, and I think I've benefited a lot.
Favorite share?
Favorite share?
Yeah.
I have already recited it.
Yes, you have.
I'll
But
recite it again.
yeah.
जिंदगी सबसे बड़ी सजा तो नहीं. Okay, he says it is not.
Mm.
I don't believe it. Noor says it is, but I don't believe it. It's entirely up to you. जिंदगी सबसे बड़ी सजा ही सही. And then one of the stanzas is सच चाहे थोड़ा रहे या सच बढ़े तो सच नहीं रहे. That means if a truth
Mm.
is reduced or it is magnified, then it does not remain the truth.
Yeah.
No, there's so much of realism in that. And झूठ की कोई इंतहा तो नहीं. That means for lies, there's no limit
Yeah.
to lies. So that is my favorite share. Otherwise, this is something which I missed in early childhood. I read Keats and English poems and only got down to Sher Shari after I went to AMU. But I think there's great beauty, and I give a lot of importance to shairs because of that we've been able to preserve Urdu. Because of that, we've been able to propagate Urdu, and I think the Indian cinema, to a large extent,
Yeah.
propagate to a large extent.
That's true. That's true. One word that defines India for you.
Well, one word really doesn't. There are three words: unity in diversity.
Mm.
You know,
Beautiful.
one would be too little to define India. But I define it in three words: unity in diversity, and I stand by that.
Totally, and so true. Finally, General Shah, if you could leave one lifelong message for all Indians about unity, patriotism, and national service, what would that be?
Well, the advice I give to people is speak without offending. We are in a country where the minority must not offend. That doesn't mean that we crawl when we, no, there's no requirement to crawl. There's no need to wear loyalty on your sleeve. Just do your work, win honors for the country, and speak without offending. That is the advice I'd like to give. And you are what you think you are, and you can be what you want to be. So when you're looking at yourself in the mirror early in the morning, see yourself as a tiger, not a rabbit with long ears. Because if you see yourself in the mirror as a tiger, you are what you think you are. Imagine yourself to be a tiger. You'll be afraid of nobody, you'll do your business, you'll do your work, and you will remain a tiger.
Such a, I would say, great gems of wisdom. I wish we could continue another 20 hours and extract all the wisdom and such a life experience that you have, General Shah. Again, as I said, you are a national hero and our inspiration. And I just hope that everybody draws so much inspiration and take these messages to the heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I am not a hero. I do not claim to be. I only take pride in the fact that I did whatever work was entrusted to me to the best of my ability. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind.
Assalamu alaikum. Jai Hind.
Alaikum assalam.